There's a golden thread that runs through every religion in the world. It runs through the lives and the teachings of all the prophets, seers, sages, and saviors in the world's history. It runs through the lives of all men and women of truly great and lasting power. Everything they ever achieved, everything they ever attained to, was done in full accordance with this thread, this law, this principle. And what one has done, all may do. That is the promise at the heart of this book. Not that greatness is reserved for the few. Not that peace belongs only to the lucky, or power only to the gifted, or plenty only to the privileged. But that there's one great law, one golden thread, and that it is woven into the fabric of the universe itself, available to every human soul willing to find it and live by it. The book you are about to hear was written by Ralph Waldo Trine and published in 1897 under the title In Tune with the Infinite, or Fullness of Peace, Power, and Plenty. It became one of the most widely read books of the 20th century, translated into numerous languages, carried around the world, kept on bedside tables, and tucked into jacket pockets by people in every walk of life who found in its pages something that changed them. Henry Ford kept a copy with him always. He credited it with transforming his approach to life and work. He was not alone. What Trine offered was not theology. It was not philosophy in the dry sense. It was something more immediate, more practical, more urgently needed than either. It was a map, a clear, warm, beautifully written map, back to the source of all life, all power, all peace. The source, Trine tells us, is not out there somewhere. It is not in a church, a temple, a distant mountaintop, a holy land, or a particular religious tradition. It is here. It is now. It is within you, and the degree to which you open yourself to it determines everything. Your health, your happiness, your relationships, your sense of purpose, the very quality of your days. Within yourself lies the cause of whatever enters into your life. To come into the full realization of your own awakened interior powers is to be able to condition your life in exact accord with what you would have it. This is the promise. Let us see how it is kept. Prelude. The optimist is right. The pessimist is right. The one differs from the other as the light from the dark. Yet both are right. Each is right from his own particular point of view. And this point of view is a determining factor in the life of each. It determines as to whether it is a life of power or of impotence, of peace or of pain, of success or failure. The optimist has the power of seeing things in their entirety and in their right relations. The pessimist looks from a limited and a one-sided point of view. The one has his understanding illumined by wisdom. The understanding of the other is darkened by ignorance. Each is building his world from within, and the result of the building is determined by the point of view of each. The optimist, by his superior wisdom and insight, is making his own heaven, and in the degree that he makes his own heaven is he helping to make one for all the world beside. The pessimist, by virtue of his limitations, is making his own hell, and in the degree that he makes his own hell is he helping to make one for all mankind. You and I have the predominating characteristics of an optimist or the predominating characteristics of a pessimist. We are making, hour by hour, our own heaven or our own hell. And in the degree that we are making the one or the other for ourselves, we are helping make it for all the world beside. Now, the word heaven means harmony, and the word hell comes from an old English root meaning to build a wall around, to separate, to be shut off from. To be in hell, in the truest sense, is to be shut off, separated from that which your soul most deeply needs. If there is such a thing as harmony, there must be something one can be in right relations with. For to be in right relations with anything is to be in harmony with it. And if there is such a thing as being shut off, then there must be something from which one is shut off. This is where we begin, with this choice, with this moment, right now. What point of view will you hold as you listen to what follows? Chapter 1. The supreme fact of the universe. The great central fact of the universe is this. There is a spirit of infinite life and power that is back of all, that animates all, that manifests itself in and through all, a self-existent principle of life from which all has come, and not only from which all has come, but from which all is continually coming. This is not a proposition that requires argument. It is self-evident to any honest, open mind. If there is individual life anywhere in the universe, there must of necessity be an infinite source of life from which it comes. If there is a quality or a force of love anywhere, there must of necessity be an infinite source of love from which it springs. If there is wisdom anywhere, there must be the all-wise source back of it. The same is true in regard to peace, in regard to power, in regard to what we call material things. There is then this spirit of infinite life and power back of all, which is the source of all. This infinite power is creating, working, ruling through the agency of great immutable laws and forces that run through all the universe, that surround us on every side. Every act of our everyday lives is governed by these same great laws and forces. Every flower that blooms by the wayside springs up, grows, blooms, and fades according to certain great immutable laws. Every snowflake that plays between earth and heaven forms, falls, and melts according to certain great unchangeable laws. In a sense, there is nothing in all the great universe but law. If this is true, there must of necessity be a force behind it all that is a maker of these laws, and a force greater than the laws themselves. This spirit of infinite life and power that is back of all is what Trine calls God. He cares not what term you may use, kindly light, providence, the oversoul, omnipotence, or whatever term may be most convenient. He cares not what the term may be, as long as we are agreed in regard to the great central fact itself. God, then, is this infinite spirit which fills all the universe with himself alone, so that all is from him and in him, and there is nothing that is outside. Indeed and in truth, then in him we live and move and have our being. He is the life of our life, our very life itself. Now here is where the teaching becomes personal and profound. We have received our life from this infinite source, and we are continually receiving it. We are partakers of the life of God. And though we differ from God in that we are individualized spirits, while he is the infinite spirit including us, as well as all else beside, yet in essence the life of God and the life of man are identically the same, and so are one. They differ not in essence, not in quality. They differ in degree. Trine offers a beautiful illustration to make this clear. There is a reservoir in a valley which receives its supply from an inexhaustible reservoir on the mountainside above. The water in the smaller reservoir is, in nature, in quality, in characteristics, identically the same as in the larger reservoir, which is its source. The difference is this. The reservoir on the mountainside, in the amount of its water, so far transcends a reservoir in a valley that it can supply an innumerable number like reservoirs and still be unexhausted. So it is with the life of man. Your life and mine come by a divine inflow from the infinite source. And the life that comes by this inflow is necessarily the same in essence as the infinite spirit of life itself. There is a difference, but it is not a difference in essence. It is a difference in degree. Now here's a conclusion that follows from all of this. A conclusion that, once genuinely grasped, changes everything. In the degree that man opens himself to this divine inflow, does he approach to God? And in the degree that he makes this approach, does he take on the God powers? And if the God powers are without limit, does it not then follow that the only limitations man has are the limitations he sets to himself by virtue of not knowing himself? This is a foundation stone of everything that follows. Let it settle in before we move forward. You are not separate from the source of all life and all power. You are an individualized expression of it. You have come from it. You are sustained by it. You are at your deepest level of its very nature. The only question is whether you know this, whether you live this, whether you have opened the gate between yourself and the inexhaustible reservoir on the mountain above you. Trine describes a friend who has a beautiful lotus pond on his estate, a natural basin supplied with water from a reservoir in the foothills some distance away. A gate regulates the flow. When the gate is open, the water flows in freely. The pond is filled. The lotus flowers bloom. Birds come to drink and bathe. Their song fills the air from early until late. A beautiful grove stretches back. Bees work the wildflowers. The stream that overflows runs down to the fields below, giving pure mountain water to the cattle and flocks grazing there. The beauty and vitality of the place draw visitors from everywhere. People come burdened and leave lighter. They murmur blessings as they go. Then the estate passes for a year into the hands of a practical-minded tenant, a man who had no time for anything that did not bring him direct practical returns. He shuts the gate. The crystal mountain water no longer flows in. The lotus flowers wilt. Their long stems lie stretched upon the mud in the bottom. The fish die and give an offensive odor to all who come near. The flowers no longer bloom on the banks. The birds no longer come. The bees no longer hum. The stream that ran to the fields below dries up, and the cattle and flocks can no longer get their supply of clear mountain water. The difference between the two conditions of that pond was caused entirely by the opening or the closing of one gate. In this, Trine says, we see a complete parallel to human life. In the degree that we recognize our oneness and our connection with the infinite spirit, which is the life of all, and in the degree that we open ourselves to this divine inflow, do we come into harmony with the highest, the most powerful, and the most beautiful everywhere. And in the degree that we do this, do we overflow so that all who come in contact with us receive the effects of this realization on our part. And in the degree that we fail to recognize our oneness with this infinite source and so close ourselves to this divine inflow, do we come into that state where there seems to be with us nothing of good, nothing of beauty, nothing of power. There's this great difference between the lotus pond in your life and mine. However, the pond has no power in itself of opening the gate. It is helpless and dependent upon an outside agency. You and I have the power within us, to open or to close ourselves to this divine inflow exactly as we choose. This we have through the power of mind, through the operation of thought. Thought is not, as is many times supposed, a mere indefinite abstraction. It is, on the contrary, a vital living force, the most vital, subtle, and irresistible force there is in the universe. In our very laboratory experiments, we are demonstrating the great fact that thoughts are forces. They have form and quality and substance and power. Everything in the material universe about us, everything the universe has ever known, had its origin first in thought. From thought it took its form. Every castle, every statue, every painting, every piece of mechanism, everything had its birth, its origin, first in the mind of the one who formed it, before it received its material expression. The very universe in which we live is a result of the thought energies of God, the infinite spirit that is back of all. And if it is true, as we have found, that we in our true selves are in essence one with the life of this infinite spirit, then do we not see that in the degree that we come into a vital realization of this stupendous fact, we, through the operation of our interior spiritual thought forces, have in like sense creative power? Everything exists in the unseen before it is manifested or realized in the seen. In this sense, it is true that the unseen things are the real, while the things that are seen are the unreal. The unseen things are cause. The seen things are effect. The unseen things are the eternal. The seen things are the changing, the transient. There is in connection with the thought forces what we may term the drawing power of mind. And the great law operating here is one with that great law of the universe. That like attracts like, we are continually attracting to us from both the seen and the unseen side of life forces and conditions most akin to those of our own thoughts. This law is continually operating whether we are conscious of it or not. We are all living in a vast ocean of thought, and the very atmosphere around us is continually filled with thought forces being sent out in the form of thought waves. We are all affected more or less by these thought forces, either consciously or unconsciously. Faith is nothing more nor less than the operation of the thought forces in the form of an earnest desire, coupled with expectation as to its fulfillment, and in the degree that this earnest desire is continually held to and watered by firm expectation, in just that degree does it either draw to itself or transform from the unseen into the visible, from the spiritual into material, that for which it is sent. Let the element of doubt or fear enter in, and what would otherwise be a tremendous force will be so neutralized that it will fail of its realization. Continually held to and continually watered by firm expectation, it becomes a force, a drawing power that is irresistible and absolute. We shall find, as we are so rapidly beginning to find today, that the great things said in regard to faith, the great promises made in connection with it, are not mere vague sentimentalities. They are all great scientific facts and rest upon great immutable laws. Much is said in regard to the will. It is many times spoken of as if it were a force in itself. But will is a force and a power only in so far as it is a particular form of the manifestation of the thought forces. It is by what we call the will that thought is focused and given a particular direction, and in the degree that thought is thus focused and given direction, is it effective in the work it is sent out to accomplish. In a sense, there are two kinds of will, the human and the divine. The human will is the will of the lower self. It is the will that finds its life merely in the realm of the mental and the physical. The divine will is the will of the higher self, the will of the one who recognizes his oneness with the divine, and who consequently brings his will to work in harmony and in conjunction with the divine will. The human will has its limitations. The divine will has no limitations. It is supreme. All things are open and subject to you, says the law, and in the degree that the human will is transmuted into the divine, in the degree that it comes into harmony with and acts in conjunction with the divine, does it become supreme. Then it is that thou shalt decree a thing, and it shall be established unto thee. The great secret of life and of power, then, is to make and to keep one's conscious connection with this infinite source. The power of every life, the very life itself, is determined by what it relates itself to. Chapter 2. The Supreme Fact of Human Life. From the great central fact of the universe, the spirit of infinite life that is back of all and from which all comes, we are led to ask, what is the great central fact in human life? From what has gone before, the question almost answers itself. The great central fact in human life, in your life and in mine, is a coming into a conscious, vital realization of our oneness with this infinite life and the opening of ourselves fully to this divine inflow. This is a great central fact in human life, for in this all else is included. All else follows in its train. In just the degree that we come into a conscious realization of our oneness with the infinite life and open ourselves to this divine inflow, do we actualize in ourselves the qualities and powers of the infinite life. What does this mean in practice? It means simply this, that we are recognizing our true identity, that we are bringing our lives into harmony with the same great laws and forces, and so opening ourselves to the same great inspirations as of all the prophets, seers, sages, and saviors in the world history, all men and women of truly great and mighty power. For in the degree that we come into this realization and connect ourselves with this infinite source, do we make it possible for the higher powers to play, to work, to manifest through us. We can keep close to this divine inflow, to these higher forces and powers, through ignorance, as most of us do, and thus hinder or even prevent their manifesting through us. Or we can intentionally close ourselves to their operations, and thus deprive ourselves of the powers to which, by the very nature of our being, we are rightful heirs. On the other hand, we can come into so vital a realization of the oneness of our real selves with this infinite life, and can open ourselves so fully to the incoming of this divine inflow, and so at the operation of these higher forces, inspirations, and powers, that we can indeed and in truth become what we may well term God-men. And what is a God-man? One in whom the powers of God are manifesting, though yet a man. No one can set limitations to a person of this type, for the only limitations he or she can have are those set by the self. Ignorance is the most potent factor in setting limitations to the majority of mankind. And so the great majority of people continue to live their little, dwarf, and stunted lives simply by virtue of the fact that they do not realize the larger life to which they are heirs. They have never come into a knowledge of the real identity of their true selves. Mankind has not yet realized that the real self is one with the life of God. Through ignorance it has never opened itself to the divine inflow, and so has never made itself a channel through which the infinite powers and forces can manifest. When we know ourselves merely as men, we live accordingly and have merely the powers of men. When we come into the realization of the fact that we are God-men, then again we live accordingly and have the powers of God-men. In the degree that we open ourselves to this divine inflow, are we changed from mere men into God-men. There is a gate. We have established that. A gate between the infinite reservoir on the mountain and the pool of your life here below. That gate is open to the mind through the operation of thought. And more specifically, it is open to the coming into a conscious, vital recognition of what we actually are in our true, essential nature. This is not a matter of religious belief in the conventional sense. Trine is not asking you to join any particular church or subscribe to any particular creed. He is pointing to a fact about reality, about your nature and its relationship to the nature of all things, and asking you to know it, not to believe it intellectually, but to know it in the living, vital sense. The sense in which you know that your heart is beating, that the sun is warm on your face, that the person you love most in the world loves you. That quality of knowing. And he is telling you that in the degree that you come into that quality of knowing with respect to your oneness with the infinite life, everything in your experience will begin to change. Because the outer world, as we have seen, is nothing but the inner world made visible. As within, so without. Cause, effect, the thought forces, the various mental states and emotions, all have in time their effects upon the physical body and upon the circumstances of life. This is not a matter of speculation. It is a matter of observation, of experience, of law. And when we understand the law, we can work with it instead of against it. We can open the gate. Chapter 3, Fullness of Life, Bodily Health and Vigor. God is the spirit of infinite life. If we are partakers of this life and have the power of opening ourselves fully to its divine inflow, it means more, so far as even the physical life is concerned, than we may at first think. For very clearly, the life of this infinite spirit, from its very nature, can admit of no disease. And if this is true, no disease can exist in the body where it freely enters, through which it freely flows. Let us recognize at the outset that, so far as the physical life is concerned, all life is from within out. There is an immutable law which says, as within, so without, cause, effect. In other words, the thought forces, the various mental states and emotions, all have in time their effects upon the physical body. Someone will say, I hear a great deal said today in regard to the effects of the mind upon the body, but I don't know as I place very much confidence in this. Don't you? Someone brings you sudden news. You grow pale, you tremble, or perhaps you fall into a faint. It is through the channel of your mind that the news reaches you. A friend says something unkind at the table. You've been enjoying your dinner. But from this moment your appetite is gone. What was said entered into and affected you through the channel of your mind. Look at a young man dragging his feet, stumbling over the slightest obstruction. Why? Simply that he is weak-minded. A falling state of mind is productive of a falling condition of the body. To be sure-minded is to be sure-footed. To be uncertain in mind is to be uncertain in step. A sudden emergency arises. You stand trembling and weak with fear. Why are you powerless to move? You are for a moment dominated by a fit of anger, and for hours afterward you complain of a violent headache. And still you do not seem to realize that the thoughts and emotions have an effect upon the body? Trine tells of a conversation with a friend whose father was, as the friend said, greatly given to worry. Without having met the father, Trine described his physical condition and the particular ailments from which he suffered. The friend was astonished. How could Trine know all this without having met the man? You have just told me that your father is greatly given to worry. Trine replied. When you told me this, you indicated cause. In describing your father's condition, I simply connected with the cause its own peculiar effects. Fear and worry have the effect of closing up the channels of the body, so that the life forces flow in a slow and sluggish manner. Hope and tranquility open the channels of the body, so that the life forces go bounding through it in such a way that disease can rarely get a foothold. A lady came to a friend with a serious physical trouble, stiffness of joints, rheumatic complaints. My friend happened to know that between this lady and her sister, the most kindly relations did not exist. He listened to her delineation of her troubles, and then looking her squarely in the face, said in a firm but kindly tone, "Forgive your sister." The woman looked at him in surprise. "I can't forgive my sister," she said. "Very well, then," he replied, keep the stiffness of your joints and your kindred rheumatic troubles. A few weeks later, he saw her again. With a light step, she came toward him. "I took your advice," she said. "I saw my sister and forgave her. We have become good friends again, and I don't know how it is, but somehow from the very day we became reconciled, my troubles seem to grow less, and today there is not a trace of the old difficulties left. And really, my sister and I have become such good friends that we can scarcely get along without one another. Again, we have effect following cause. The experiments of scientists have demonstrated this connection between mental and emotional states and the chemistry of the body in remarkable detail. Anger changes the chemical properties of the saliva to a poison dangerous to life. Sudden and violent emotions have not only weakened the heart in a few hours, but have caused death and insanity. Fear has killed thousands of victims. Courage is a great invigorator. A physician goes to see a patient. He gives no medicine. Yet the very fact of his going makes the patient better. He has carried with him the spirit of health, brightness of tone and disposition, hope into the sick chamber, and left it there. The very hope and good cheer he has carried with him has had a subtle but powerful influence upon the mind of the patient, and this mental condition has in turn its effects upon the patient's body. We sometimes hear a person in weak health say, "I always feel better when you come." There is a deep scientific reason underlying the statement. One of the world's most noted scientists has told us that the entire human structure can be completely changed, made over within a period of less than 1 year. And some portions can be entirely remade within a period of a very few weeks. The only thing that any drug or any medicine can do is to remove obstructions so that the life forces may have a better chance to do their work. The real healing process must be performed by the operation of the life forces within. Trine does not shy from directness here. He is saying something extraordinary. He is saying that disease, chronic, persistent, seemingly intractable physical disease, has its roots in mental and emotional conditions, and that when those conditions change, when the inner life comes into harmony with the infinite life, the disease begins to clear. He is careful, too. He acknowledges that many foolish and absurd things have been claimed in connection with mental healing. But the great underlying laws themselves are not made foolish by the foolishness of their misapplication. The moment a person realizes his oneness with the infinite spirit, he recognizes himself as a spiritual being and no longer as a mere physical, material being. He then no longer makes a mistake of regarding himself as body, subject to ills and diseases, but he realizes the fact that he is spirit. Spirit now as much as he ever will or can be, and that he is a builder, and so the master of the body, the house in which he lives. The moment he thus recognizes his power as master, he ceases to allow the body to mastery over him. He who formerly was a slave has now become the master. The moment we come to love a thing, it no longer carries harm for us. There are almost countless numbers today, weak and suffering in body, who will become strong and healthy if they would only give God an opportunity to do his work. Don't shut out the divine inflow. Do anything else rather than this. Open yourselves to it. Invite it in the degree that you open yourselves to it. Its inflowing tide will course through your bodies of force so vital that the old obstructions that are dominating them today will be driven out before it. Think of a trough through which a stream of muddy water has been flowing for many days. The dirt is gradually collected on its sides and bottom, and it continues to collect as long as the muddy water flows through it. Now open the trough to a swift-flowing stream of clear, crystal water. In a very little, while even the very dirt that is collected on its sides and bottom will be carried away. The trough will be entirely cleansed. The water that courses through it will be an agent of refreshment and health and strength to those who use it. In just the degree that you realize your oneness with this infinite spirit of life, and thus actualize your latent possibilities and powers, you'll exchange disease for ease, inharmony for harmony, suffering and pain for abounding health and strength. And in the degree that you realize this wholeness, this abounding health and strength in yourself, will you carry it to all with whom you come in contact? For health is contagious as well as disease. The practical application Trine offers is this. With a mind at peace and with a heart going out in love to all, go into the quiet of your own interior self, holding the thought, I am one with the infinite spirit of life, the life of my life. I then, as spirit, a spiritual being, can in my own real nature admit of no disease. I now open my body, in which disease has gotten a foothold. I open it fully to the inflowing tide of this infinite life, and it now, even now, is pouring in and coursing to my body, and the healing process is going on. Realize this so fully that you begin to feel a quickening and a warming glow imparted by the life forces to body. Believe the healing process is going on. Believe it and hold continually to it. If one will give himself to this meditation, realization, treatment, whatever term it may seem best to use, at stated times, as often as he may choose, and then continually hold himself in the same attitude of mind, thus allowing the force to work continually, he will be surprised how rapidly the body will be exchanging conditions of disease and inharmony for health and harmony. There is no particular reason for the surprise, however. In this way, he is simply allowing the omnipotent power to do the work, which will have to do it ultimately in any case. Full, rich, and abounding health is the normal and the natural condition of life. Anything else is an abnormal condition, and abnormal conditions, as a rule, come through perversions. God never created sickness, suffering, and disease. They are man's own creations. They come through as violating the laws under which he lives. The time will come when the work of the physician will not be to treat and attempt to heal the body, but to heal the mind, which in turn will heal the body. The true physician will be a teacher. His work will be to keep people well, instead of attempting to make them well after sickness and disease comes on. And still beyond this, there will come a time when each will be his own physician. Would you remain always young? Would you carry all the joyousness and buoyancy of youth into your mature years? Then have care concerning but one thing, how you live in your thought world. This will determine all. The mind is everything. What you think you become. Chapter 4. The secret power and effects of love. This is the spirit of infinite love. The moment we recognize ourselves as one with it, we become so filled with love that we see only the good in all. And when we realize that we are all one with this infinite spirit, then we realize that in a sense we are all one with each other. When we come into a recognition of this fact, we can do no harm to anyone, to anything. We find that we are all members of the one great body, and that no portion of the body can be harmed without all the other portions suffering thereby. When we fully realize the great fact of the oneness of all life, that all are partakers from this one infinite source, and so that the same life is a life in each individual, then prejudices go and hatred cease. Love grows and reigns supreme. Then, wherever we go, whenever we come in contact with fellow human being, we are able to recognize the God within. We thus look only for the good, and we find it. It always pays. There is a deep scientific fact underlying the great truth. He that takes the sword shall perish by the sword. The moment we come into a realization of the subtle powers of the thought forces, we can quickly see that the moment we entertain any thoughts of hatred toward another, he gets the effects of these diabolical forces that go out from us and has the same thoughts of hatred aroused in him, which in turn return to the sender. And when we understand the effect of the passion of hatred or anger even upon the physical body, we can see how costly, how destructive this is. In the ultimate, we shall find that in entertaining feelings of this nature toward another, we always suffer far more than the one toward whom we entertain them. When we fully realize the fact that selfishness is at the root of all error, sin, and crime, and that ignorance is the basis of all selfishness, with what charity we come to look upon the acts of all. It is the ignorant man who seeks his own ends at the expense of the greater whole. The truly wise man is never selfish. He is a seer and recognizes the fact that he, a single member of the one great body, is benefited in just a degree that the entire body is benefited, and so he seeks nothing for himself that he would not equally seek for all mankind. In the degree that we hold a person the thought of evil or of error, do we suggest evil and error to him? In the degree that he is sensitive and open to suggestion, he will be influenced. And so, in this way, we may actually become sharers in the very wrongdoing in which we hold another in thought. In the same way, when we hold a person the thought of the right, the good, and the true, righteousness, goodness, and truth are suggested to him, and thus we have a most beneficent influence on his life and conduct. If our hearts go out in love to all with whom we come in contact, we inspire love, and the same ennobling and warming influences of love always return to us from those in whom we inspire them. There is a deep scientific principle underlying precept. If you would have all the world love you, you must first love all the world. In the degree that we love will we be loved. Thoughts are forces. Each creates of its kind. Each comes back laden with the effect that corresponds to itself. Try and describe a friend who continually holds himself in an attitude of mind that sends out thoughts of love in a form. Dear everybody, I love you. And when we realize the fact that a thought invariably produces its effect before it returns or before it ceases, we can see how he is continually breathing out a blessing not only upon all with whom he comes in contact, but upon all the world. These same thoughts of love, moreover, token in various ways, are continually coming back to him from all quarters. Even animals feel the effects of these forces. Some animals are much more sensitively organized than many people are, and they get the effects of our thoughts, our mental states, and our emotions with remarkable responsiveness. What a privilege it would be to live and walk in a world where we meet only gods. In such a world you can live. In such a world I can live. For in the degree that we come into this higher realization, do we see only the God in each human soul. And when we are thus able to see him, in every one we meet, we live in such a world. We must understand meeting hatred with love, not as passive surrender, but as the highest form of power. If someone bears you hatred, and you have not been the cause of it, if you meet it with thoughts of love and goodwill, you can so neutralize its effects that it cannot reach you and so cannot harm you. Love is positive and stronger than hatred. Hatred can always be conquered by love. If you meet hatred with hatred, you simply intensify it. You add fuel to the flame. By sending love for hatred, you will be able so to neutralize it that it will not only have no effect upon you, but will not be able even to reach you. And more than this, by this course you will sooner or later be able literally to transmute the enemy into the friend. Meet hatred with hatred, and you degrade yourself. Meet hatred with love, and you elevate not only yourself, but also the one who bears you hatred. The Persian sage has said, always meet petulance with gentleness, and perverseness with kindness. A gentle hand can lead even an elephant by a hair. The Buddhist says, if a man foolishly does me wrong, I will return in protection of my ungrudging love. The more evil comes from him, the more good shall go from me. Return good for evil. Overcome anger by love. Hatred never ceases by hatred, but by love. Love and its kindred emotions are the normal and the natural, those in accordance with the eternal order of the universe. For God is love. These have a life-giving, health-engendering influence upon your body. They beautify your countenance, enrich your voice, and make you ever more attractive in every way. And as it is true that in the degree that you hold thoughts of love for all, you call the same from them in return, and as these have a direct effect upon your mind, and through your mind upon your body, it is as so much life force added to your own from without. You are continually building this into both your mental and your physical life. And so your life is enriched by its influence. Hatred and all its kindred emotions are the unnatural, the abnormal, the perversions, and so out of harmony with the eternal order of the universe. For if love is a fulfilling of the law, then these, its opposites, are direct violations of law, and there can never be a violation of law without its attendant pain and suffering in one form or another. There is no escape from this. Love inspires love. Hatred breeds hatred. Love and good will stimulate and build up the body. Hatred and malice corrode and tear it down. Love is a savor of life unto life. Hatred is a savor of death unto death. Give to the world the best you have, and the best will come back to you. Give love, and love to your heart will flow, a strength in your utmost need. Have faith, and a score of hearts will show their faith in your word and deed. Chapter 5. Wisdom and Interior Illumination. This is the spirit of infinite wisdom, and in the degree that we open ourselves to it does the highest wisdom manifest itself to and through us. We can in this way go to the very heart of the universe itself and find the mysteries hidden to the majority of mankind, hidden to them, though not hidden of themselves. In order for the highest wisdom and insight, we must have absolute confidence in the divine guiding us. But here is a critical point. Not through the channel of someone else. Why should we go to another for knowledge and wisdom? God is no respecter of persons. Why should we seek these things secondhand? Why should we thus limit our own innate powers? Why should we not go directly to the infinite source itself? If any man lack wisdom, let him ask of God. Before they call, I will answer, and while they are yet speaking, I will hear. When we thus go directly to the infinite source itself, we are no longer slaves of personalities, institutions, or books. We should always keep ourselves open to suggestions of truth from these agencies. We should regard them as agencies, however, and never as sources. We should never recognize them as masters, but simply as teachers. With Browning, we must recognize the great fact that truth is within ourselves. It takes no rise from outward things. There is an inmost center in us all where truth abides in fullness. There is no more important injunction in all the world, nor one with a deeper interior meaning, than to thine own self be true. In other words, be true to your own soul. For it is through your own soul that the voice of God speaks to you. This is the interior guide. This is the light that lighteth every man that cometh into the world. This is conscience. This is intuition. This is the voice of the higher self, the voice of the soul, the voice of God. Thou shalt hear a voice behind thee, saying, "This is the way, walk ye in it." When Elijah was on the mountain, it was after the various physical commotions and manifestations that he heard the still, small voice, the voice of his own soul, through which the infinite God was speaking. If we will but follow this voice of intuition, it will speak ever more clearly and more plainly, until by and by it becomes absolutely unerring in its guidance. The great trouble with us is that we do not listen to and do not follow this voice within our own souls, and so we become as a house divided against itself. We are pulled this way and that. We are never certain of anything. Try and describe a friend who listens so carefully to this inner voice, who acts so quickly and so fully in accordance with his intuitions, and whose life as a consequence is so absolutely guided by them, that he always does the right thing at the right time and in the right way. He always knows when to act and how to act, and he is never in the condition of a house divided against itself. He who would enter into the realm of wisdom must first divest himself of all intellectual pride. He must become as a little child. Prejudices, preconceived opinions, and beliefs always stand in the way of true wisdom. Conceited opinions are always suicidal in their influences. They bar the door to the entrance of truth. All about us we see men and women in the religious world, in the world of science, in the political, in the social world, who through intellectual pride are so wrapped in their own conceits and prejudices that larger and later revelations of truth can find no entrance to them. And instead of growing and expanding, they are becoming dwarfed and stunted and still more incapable of receiving truth. There is a great law in connection with the coming of truth. Whenever a person shuts himself or herself to the entrance of truth, on account of intellectual pride, preconceived opinions, prejudices, or for whatever reason, there is a great law which says that truth in its fullness will come to that one from no source. And on the other hand, when a person opens himself or herself fully to the entrance of truth from whatever source it may come, there is an equally great law which says that truth will flow in from all sources, from all quarters. Such becomes the free man, the free woman, for it is the truth that makes us free. There is nothing that is valuable for us to know that will not come to us, if we will but open ourselves to the voice of this infinite spirit. It is thus that we become seers and have the power of seeing into the very heart of things. All things that it is valuable for us to know will come to us, if we will but open ourselves. And in this way we become seers, able to look not merely at the surfaces of things, but through them into their very essence. Wisdom comes by intuition. It far transcends knowledge. Great knowledge, knowledge of many things, may be had by virtue simply of a very retentive memory. But wisdom far transcends knowledge. Knowledge is a mere incident of this deeper wisdom. And so, for those times when you are in doubt as to the course you should pursue, after you have turned to every outward means of guidance, let the inward eye see, let the inward ear hear. In all dark hours and times of perplexity, enter into thine inner chamber and shut the door. This does not mean that you must physically withdraw to a private closet. You can enter the inner chamber anywhere, on a noisy street, in a busy office, in the midst of a crowd, by drawing the curtains of privacy about you and entering into the mystic silence within, taking your difficulty with you into this mystic silence in the form of a direct question to which you expect a certain answer, remaining utterly passive until a reply comes. This is how illumination comes. This is how guidance arrives. One condition is imposed by universal law, and this we must obey. Put all other wishes aside save the one desired and know truth. Coupled with this one demand the fully consecrated determination to follow what is distinctly perceived as truth immediately it is revealed. No other affection must be permitted to share the field with this all-absorbing love of truth for its own sake. Obey this one direction, and you will soon find your hitherto darkened way growing luminous with light. The soul is divine. In allowing it to become translucent to the infinite spirit, it reveals all things to us. As man turns away from the divine light, all things become hidden. When the spiritual sense is open, it transcends all the limitations of the physical senses and the intellect. And in the degree that we are able to get away from those limitations and realize that so far as the real life is concerned, it is one with the infinite life, then we begin to reach the place where this voice will always speak, where it will never fail us if we follow it. And as a consequence, we will always have the divine illumination and guidance. To know this and to live in this realization is not to live in heaven hereafter, but to live in heaven here now, today and every day. No human soul need be without it. When we turn our face in the right direction, it comes as simply and as naturally as the flower blooms and the winds blow. It is not be bought with money or with price. It is a condition waiting simply to be realized by rich and by poor, by king and by peasant, by master and by servant the world over. All are equal heirs to it. Chapter 6. The realization of perfect peace. This is the spirit of infinite peace. And the moment we come into harmony with it, there comes to us an inflowing tide of peace. For peace is harmony. Oh, the thousands of men and women all about us weary with care, troubled and ill at ease, running hither and thither to find peace, weary in body, soul, and mind, go to other countries, traveling the world over, coming back, and still not finding it. Of course they have not found it, and they never will find it in this way, because they are looking for it where it is not. They are looking for it without when they should look within. Peace is to be found only within, and unless one finds it there, he will never find it at all. Peace lies not in the external world. It lies within one's own soul. To be at one with God is to be at peace. Trine tells of a comparatively young man who was an invalid for several years, his health completely broken with nervous exhaustion, to whom everything and everybody presented a gloomy aspect. Not long ago he came into such a vital realization of his oneness with the infinite power. He opened himself so completely to its divine inflow that today he is in perfect health, and frequently, as Trine meets him, he cannot resist the impulse to cry out, "Oh, it is a joy to be alive." Trine also knows an officer on the police force who has told him that many times when off duty and on his way home in the evening, there comes to him such a vivid and vital realization of his oneness with the infinite power, and this spirit of infinite peace so takes hold of and so fills him, that it seems as if his feet could scarcely keep the pavement. So buoyant and so exhilarated does he become by reason of this inflowing tide. He who comes into this higher realization never has any fear, for he has always with him a sense of protection, and the very realization of this makes his protection complete. No weapon that is formed against thee shall prosper. There shall no ill come nigh thy dwelling. Thou shalt be in league with the stones of the field, and the beasts of the field shall be at peace with thee. These are the men and the women who seem to live charmed lives. The moment we fear anything, we open the door for the entrance of the actualization of the very thing we fear. An animal will never harm a person who is absolutely fearless in regard to it. The instant he fears, he opens himself to danger, and the dog, for example, can instantly detect the element of fear, and this gives them the courage to do harm. In the degree that we come into a full realization of our oneness with this infinite power, do we become calm and quiet, undisturbed by the little occurrences that before so vexed and annoyed us. We are no longer disappointed in people, for we always read them aright. We have the power of penetrating into their very souls and seeing the underlying motives that are at work there. There are people all around us who are continually giving out blessings and comfort, persons whose mere presence seems to change sorrow into joy, fear into courage, despair into hope, weakness into power. It is the one who has come into the realization of his own true self, who carries this power with him and who radiates it wherever he goes. The one who has found his center. And in all the great universe, there is but one center, the infinite power that is working in and through all. The one who has found this center is the one who has come into the realization of his oneness with the infinite life, the one who recognizes himself as a spiritual being. For God is spirit, such as a person of power, centered in the infinite. He has connected himself with the great powerhouse of the universe. He is constantly drawing power to himself from all sources. His thoughts are thoughts of strength, and by virtue of the law that like attracts like, he is continually attracting to himself from all quarters the aid of all whose thoughts are thoughts of strength. Thoughts of strength both build strength from within and attract it from without. Thoughts of weakness actualize weakness from within and attract it from without. Courage begets strength. Fear begets weakness. Courage begets success. Fear begets failure. Within each one lies the cause of whatever comes to him. Each has it in his own hands to determine what comes. Everything in the visible, material world has its origin in the unseen, the spiritual, the thought world. This is the world of cause. The former is the world of effect. What one lives in his invisible thought world. He is continually actualizing in his visible material world. If he would have any conditions different in the latter, he must make the necessary change in the former. And what is needed in most of our lives is not more effort, not more straining, not more worry, but more faith, and with it more peace. Faith, absolute dogmatic faith, is the only law of true success. When we recognize the fact that a man carries his success or his failure with him, and that it does not depend upon outside conditions, we will come into the possession of powers that will quickly change outside conditions into agencies that make for success. We need more faith in everyday life. Faith in the power that works for good. Faith in the infinite God, and hence faith in ourselves created in his image. Thou wilt keep him in perfect peace whose mind is stayed on thee. There is nothing firmer, safer, and surer than deity. Then as we recognize the fact that we have in our own hands to open ourselves ever more fully to this infinite power and call upon it to manifest itself in and through us, we will find in ourselves an ever-increasing sense of power. We are then led into the full realization of the fact that all things work together for good to those that love the good. Chapter 7. Coming into fullness of power. This is the spirit of infinite power, and in the degree that we open ourselves to it does power become manifest in us. With God, all things are possible. That is, in conjunction with God, all things are possible. The true secret power lies in keeping one's connection with the God who worketh all things. And in the degree that we keep this connection, are we able literally to rise above every conceivable limitation. Why then waste time running hither and thither to acquire power? Why waste time with this practice or that practice? Why not go directly to the mountaintop itself, instead of wandering through the byways and the valleys and on the mountain sides? That man has absolute dominion, as taught in all the scriptures of the world, is true not a physical man, but a spiritual man. When man recognizes himself as spirit and lives accordingly, he is able to transcend and empower the man who recognizes himself merely as material. All the sacred literature of the world is teeming with examples of what we call miracles. They are not confined to any particular times or places. There is no age of miracles in distinction from any other period. Whatever has been done in the world's history can be done again through the operation of the same laws and forces. These miracles were performed not by those who were more than men, but by those who through the recognition of their oneness with God became God-men, so that the higher forces and powers worked through them. And what, let us ask, is a miracle? Is it something supernatural? Supernatural only in the sense of being above the natural, or rather above that which is natural to man in his ordinary state. A miracle is nothing more nor less than this. One who has come into a knowledge of his true identity, of his oneness with the all-pervading wisdom and power, thus makes it possible for laws higher than the ordinary mind knows to be revealed to him. These laws he makes use of. The people see the results and, by virtue of their own limitations, call them miracles. But they themselves, as supernatural beings, could perform these same works if they would open themselves to the recognition of the same laws, and consequently to the realization of the same possibilities and powers. We hear much said of environment. We need to realize that environment should never be allowed to make the man, but that man should always and always can condition the environment. When we realize this, we will find that many times it is not necessary to take ourselves out of any particular environment, because we may yet have a work to do there. But by the very force we carry with us, we can so affect and change matters that we will have an entirely new set of conditions in an old environment. The same is true in regard to hereditary traits and influences. Can they be overcome? Only the one who doesn't yet know himself asks such a question. If we entertain and live in the belief that they cannot be overcome, then the chances are that they will always remain. The moment we come into a realization of our true selves, and so the tremendous powers and forces within, the powers and forces of the mind and spirit, hereditary traits and influences that are harmful in nature will begin to lessen and will disappear with rapidity directly in proportion to the completeness of this realization. There is no thing we cannot overcome. Back of thy parents and grandparents lies the great eternal will. That too is thine inheritance. Strong, beautiful, divine, sure lever success for one who tries. Are you a painter? Then in the degree that you open yourself to the power of the forces, within will you become great instead of mediocre. You can never put into permanent form inspirations higher than those that come through your own soul. In order for the higher inspirations to come through it, you must open your soul fully to the supreme source of all inspiration. Are you an orator? In the degree that you come into harmony and work in conjunction with the higher powers that will speak through you, you have the real power of molding and of moving men. If you use merely your physical agents, you will be simply a demagogue. If you open yourself so that the voice of God can speak through and use your physical agents, you'll become a great and true orator, great and true in just the degree that you so open yourself. Are you a singer? Open yourself and let the God within pour forth in the spirit of song. You'll find it 1,000 times easier than all your long and studied practice without this. And there will come to you a power of song so enchanting and so enrapturing that its influence upon all who hear will be irresistible. Are you a writer? Then remember that the one great precept underlying all successful literary work is to look into thine own heart and write. Be true, be fearless, be loyal to the promptings of your own soul. An author can never write more than he himself is. If he would write more, then he must be more. He is his own amanuensis. He writes himself into his book. The secret of the highest power is simply the uniting of the outer agencies of expression with the power that works from within. Are you a minister or a religious teacher of any kind? Then in the degree that you free yourself from the man-made theological dogmas that have held and are holding so many, and in the degree that you open yourself to the divine breath, will you be one who will speak with authority. In the degree that you do this, will you study the prophets less, and be in the way of becoming a prophet yourself. There is but one source of power in the universe. Whatever you are, painter, orator, musician, writer, religious teacher, or whatever it may be, know that to catch and take captive the secret of power is to work in conjunction with the infinite power, in order that it may continually work and manifest through you. If you fail in doing this, you fail in everything. If you fail in doing this, your work will be third or fourth rate, possibly at times second rate, but never first rate. Absolutely impossible will it be for you ever to become a master. Whatever estimate you put upon yourself will determine the effectiveness of your work along any line. When you come into the realization of your oneness with the infinite life and power and open yourself so that it may work through you, you'll find that you have entered upon an entirely new phase of life, and that an ever-increasing power will be yours. Chapter 8. Plenty of all things. The law of prosperity. This is the spirit of infinite plenty, the power that is brought and is continually bringing all things into expression in material form. He who lives in the realization of his oneness with this infinite power becomes a magnet to attract to himself a continual supply of whatsoever things he desires. If one holds himself in the thought of poverty, he will be poor, and the chances are that he will remain in poverty. If he holds himself, whatever present conditions may be, continually in the thought of prosperity, he sets into operation forces that will sooner or later bring him into prosperous conditions. The law of attraction works unceasingly throughout the universe, and the one great and never-changing fact in connection with it is, as we have found, that like attracts like, if we are one with this infinite power, the source of all things, then in the degree that we live in the realization of this oneness, in that degree do we actualize in ourselves a power that will bring to us an abundance of all things that it is desirable for us to have. As all truth exists now and awaits simply our perception of it, so all things necessary for present needs exist now, and await simply the power in us to appropriate them. God holds all things in his hands. His constant word is, my child, acknowledge me in all your ways, and in the degree that you do this, in the degree that you live this, then what is mine is yours. The Lord will provide. He gives liberally to all who put themselves in the right attitude to receive. He forces no good things upon anyone. The old and somewhat prevalent idea of godliness and poverty has absolutely no basis for its existence, and the sooner we get away from it, the better. It had its birth in a distorted, one-sided view of life, when people thought there was necessarily a warfare between the flesh and the spirit, between the material and the spiritual. True godliness is in a sense the same as true wisdom. The one who is truly wise, and who uses the forces and powers with which he is endowed. To him the great universe always opens a treasure house. The supply is always equal to the demand, equal to the demand when the demand is rightly and wisely made. When one comes into the realization of these higher laws, the fear of want ceases to tyrannize over him. Are you out of a situation? Let the fear that you will not get another take hold of and dominate you. And the chances are that it may be a long time before you will get another, or the one you do get may be a very poor one indeed. Whatever the circumstances, you must realize that you have within you forces and powers that you can send into operation that will triumph over any and all apparent or temporary losses. Set these forces into operation, and you will then be placing a magnet that will draw to you a situation that may be far better than the one you have lost. The time may soon come when you will be even thankful that you lost the old one. Recognize, working in and through you, the same infinite power that creates and governs all things in the universe. Send out your thought. Thought is a force, and it has a occult power of unknown proportions when rightly used and wisely directed. Send out your thought that the right situation or the right work will come to you at the right time, in the right way, and that you will recognize it when it comes. Hold to this thought. Never allow it to weaken. Hold to it and continually water it with firm expectation. You in this way put your advertisement into a spiritual newspaper, a paper that has not a limited circulation, but one that will make its way not only to the utmost bound of the earth, but the very universe itself. And it is an advertisement which, if rightly placed on your part, will be far more effective than any advertisement you could possibly put into any printed sheet. Never give a moment to complaint, but utilize the time that would otherwise be spent in this way in looking forward and actualizing the conditions you desire. Suggest prosperity to yourself. See yourself in a prosperous condition. Affirm that you will before long be in a prosperous condition. Affirm it calmly and quietly, but strongly and confidently. Believe it absolutely. Expect it. Keep it continually watered with expectation. You thus make yourself a magnet to attract the things that you desire. Don't be afraid to suggest, to affirm these things, for by so do you put forth an ideal which will begin to clothe itself in material form. Trine tells of a young lady who wanted some money badly, for a good purpose. She was one who had come into an understanding of the power of the interior forces. She took and held herself in the attitude of mind Trine points out. In the morning she entered into the silence for a few moments, bringing herself into a more complete harmony with the higher powers. Before the day closed, a gentleman called and asked if she would do for his family some work that needed doing. She said to herself, "Here's a call. I will respond and see what it will lead to." She undertook the work. She did it well. When she had completed it, there was put into her hands an amount of money far beyond what she had expected. The sum received was more than sufficient for the work she had wished to accomplish. Don't fold your hands and expect to see things drop into your lap. Set into operation the higher forces, and then take hold of the first thing that offers itself. Do what your hands find to do, and do it well. If this work is not thoroughly satisfying, affirm, believe, and expect that it is the agency that will lead you to something better. The law of prosperity is this. When apparent adversity comes, be not cast down by it, but make the best of it, and always look forward for better things, for conditions more prosperous. To hold yourself in this attitude of mind is to set into operation subtle, silent, and irresistible forces that sooner or later will actualize in material form that which is today merely an idea. But ideas have occult power, and ideas, when rightly planted and rightly tended, are the seeds that actualize material conditions. When in the arms of the bear, even though he is hugging you, look him in the face and laugh. But all the time, keep your eye on what you desire. If you yield to adversity, the chances are that it will master you. But if you recognize in yourself the power of mastery over conditions, then adversity will yield to you and will be changed into prosperity. Faith, absolute dogmatic faith, is the only law of true success. When we recognize the fact that a man carries his success or his failure with him, and that it does not depend upon outside conditions, we will come into the possession of powers that will quickly change outside conditions into agencies that make for success. The one who has come into the realization of the higher life no longer has a desire for the accumulation of enormous wealth, any more than he has a desire for any other excess. In the degree that he comes into the recognition of the fact that he is wealthy within, external wealth becomes less important in his estimation. He first finds a kingdom, and he realizes that when he has found this, all other things follow in full measure. Opulence is a law of the universe, an abundant supply for every need. If nothing is put in the way of its coming, then not by hoarding, but by wisely using and ridding ourselves of things as they come, an ever-renewing supply will be ours. A supply far better adapted to present needs than the old could possibly be. In this way, we not only come into possession of the richest treasures of the infinite good ourselves, but we also become open channels through which they can flow to others. Chapter 9. How men have become prophets, seers, sages, and saviors. All the prophets, seers, sages, and saviors in the world's history became what they became, and consequently had the powers they had, through an entirely natural process. They all recognized and came into the conscious realization of their oneness with the infinite life. God is no respecter of persons. He does not create prophets, seers, sages, and saviors as such. He creates men. But here and there one recognizes his true identity, recognizes the oneness of his life with the source from which it came. He lives in the realization of this oneness, and in turn becomes a prophet, seer, sage, or savior. Neither is God a respecter of races or of nations. He has no chosen people. But here and there a race or a nation becomes a respecter of God, and hence lives the life of a chosen people. There has been no age of miracles in distinction from any other age. What we term miracles have abounded in all places, and at all times where conditions have been made for them. They are being performed today just as much as they ever have been, when the laws governing them are respected. Mighty men, we are told they were mighty men who walked with God. And in the words who walk with God lies the secret of the words mighty men. Cause, effect, the sum and substance of the teaching is this. The great central fact in human life is the coming into a conscious, vital realization of our oneness with the infinite life, and the opening of ourselves fully to this divine inflow. I and the Father are one, said the Master. In this he recognized his oneness with the Father's life. Again he said, the words that I speak unto you I speak not of myself, but the Father that dwelleth in me, he doeth the works. He recognized clearly that of himself he could do nothing, only as he worked in conjunction with the Father. My Father works and I work. In other words, my Father sends a power. I open myself to it and work in conjunction with it. Again he said, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. And he left us not in the dark as to what he meant. He said, say not lo here nor lo there. Know ye not that the kingdom of heaven is within you? His injunction, putting in other words, is nothing more nor less than this. Come into a conscious realization of your oneness with the Father's life. As you realize this oneness, you find the kingdom. And when you find this, all things else shall follow. The great Hebrew seer Solomon was given the opportunity of choosing whatever he desired. His better judgment prevailed, and he chose wisdom. But when he chose wisdom, he found that it included all else beside. David was strong and powerful, and his soul burst forth in praise and adoration in just a degree that he listened to the voice of God and lived in accordance with his higher promptings. Whenever he failed to do this, we hear his soul crying out in anguish and lamentation. The same pattern holds for every person, every people. When they acknowledged God and followed according to his leadings, they were prosperous, contented, and powerful, and nothing could prevail against them. When they depended upon their own strength alone and failed to recognize God as the source of their strength, they found themselves overcome, in bondage, or in despair. A great immutable law underlies the truth. Blessed are they that hear the word of God and do it. Then follows all. We are wise in the degree that we live according to the higher light. We can be our own best friends, or we can be our own worst enemies. In the degree that we become friends to the highest and best within us, we become friends to all. And in the degree that we open ourselves to the higher powers and let them manifest through us, we become in a sense the saviors of our fellow men. Chapter 10. The basic principle of all religions, the universal religion. The great truth we are considering is the fundamental principle running through all religions. We find it in every one. In regard to it, all agree. It is moreover a great truth in regard to which all people can agree, whether they belong to the same or to different religions. People always quarrel about the trifles, about their personal views of minor, insignificant points. They always come together in the presence of great fundamental truths, the threads of which run through all. The quarrels are in connection with the lower self. The agreements are in connection with the higher self. A place may have its factions that quarrel and fight among themselves. But let a great calamity come upon the land, flood, famine, pestilence, and these little personal differences are entirely forgotten, and all work shoulder to shoulder in the one great cause. The changing, the evolving self gives rise to quarrels. The permanent, the soul self unites all in the highest efforts of love and service. Patriotism is a beautiful thing. It is well for me to love my country. But why should I love my own country more than I love all others? If I love my own and hate others, I show my limitations. If I love my own country and in the same way love all other countries, I show the largeness of my nature. The view of God in regard to which we are agreed, that he is the infinite spirit of life and power that is back of all, working in and through all, the life of all, is a matter in regard to which all people, all religions can agree. With this view, there can be no infidels or atheists. The earnest, sincere heretic is one of the greatest friends true religion can have. Heretics are among God's greatest servants. They are among the true servants of mankind. Christ was one of the greatest heretics the world has ever known. He allowed himself to be bound by no established or orthodox teachings or beliefs. He was preeminently a type of a universal. He gave himself absolutely no limitations. He allowed himself to be bound by nothing. He was absolutely universal, and as a consequence taught not for his own particular day, but for all time. This mighty truth, which we have agreed upon as the great central fact of human life, is the golden thread that runs through all religions. When we make it the paramount fact in our lives, we will find that minor differences, narrow prejudices, and all these laughable absurdities will fall away by virtue of their very insignificance. so that a Jew can worship equally as well in a Catholic cathedral, a Catholic in a Jewish synagogue, a Buddhist in a Christian church, a Christian in a Buddhist temple, or all can worship equally well about their own hearthstones, or out on the hillside, or while pursuing the avocations of everyday life. For true worship, only God and the human soul are necessary. It does not depend upon times or seasons or occasions. Anywhere and at any time, God and man in the bush may meet. The sacred books, the inspired writings, all come from the same source, God, speaking to the souls of those who open themselves that he may thus speak. Some may be more inspired than others. It depends entirely on a relative degree that this one or that one opens himself to the divine voice. Let us not be among the number so dwarfed, so limited, so bigoted as to think that the infinite God has revealed himself to one little handful of his children in one little quarter of the globe, and at one particular period of time. This is not the pattern by which God works. Of a truth I perceive that God is no respecter of persons, but in every nation he that revereth God and worketh righteousness is accepted of him. The great fundamental principles of all religions are the same. They differ only in their minor details, according to the various degrees of unfoldment of different people. There is in reality but one religion. Whatever road I take joins the highway that leads to thee. Broad as the carpet God has spread, and beautiful the colors he has given it. The pure man respects every form of faith. My doctrine makes no difference between high and low, rich and poor. Like the sky it has room for all, and like the water it washes all alike. The broad-minded see the truth in different religions. The narrow-minded see only the differences. The narrow-minded ask, is this man a stranger, or is he of our tribe? But to those in whom love dwells, the whole world is but one family. Altar flowers are many species, but all worship is one. Heaven is a palace with many doors, and each may enter in his own way. Are we not all children of one Father? Religion in its true sense is the most joyous thing the human soul can know. When the real religion is realized, we will find that it will be an agent of peace, of joy, and of happiness, and never an agent of gloomy, long-faced sadness. Let our churches grasp these great truths. Let them give their time and attention to bringing people into a knowledge of their true selves, into a knowledge of their relations, of their oneness with the infinite God, and such joy will be the result. And such crowds will flock to them that their very walls will seem almost to burst, and such songs of joy will continually pour forth as will make all people in love with the religion that makes for everyday life. Adequacy for life, adequacy for everyday life here and now, must be the test of all true religion. If it does not bear this test, then it simply is not religion. The eternal life that we are now living will be well lived if we take good care of each little period of time as it presents itself day after day. Chapter 11. Entering now into the realization of the highest riches. What can be said in a concrete way in regard to the method of coming into this realization? The facts underlying it are beautiful and true. But how can we actualize in ourselves a realization that carries with it such wonderful results? The method is not difficult if we do not of ourselves make it difficult. The principal word to be used is the word open. Simply to open your mind and heart to this divine inflow, which is waiting only for the opening of the gate, that it may enter. It is like opening the gate of the trough which conducts the water from the reservoir above into the field below. The water, by virtue of its very nature, will rush in and irrigate the field if the gate is but opened. As to the realization of our oneness with this infinite life and power, The chief thing to be said is simply, realize your oneness with it. The open mind and heart, whereby one is brought into the receptive attitude, is the first thing necessary, then the earnest, sincere desire. It may be an aid at first to take yourself for a few moments each day into the quiet, into the silence, where you will not be agitated by the disturbances that enter through the avenues of the physical senses. There in the quiet, alone with God, put yourself into a receptive attitude. Calmly, quietly, and expectantly desire that this realization break in upon and take possession of your soul. As it breaks in upon and takes possession of the soul, it will manifest itself to your mind, and from this you will feel its manifestations in every part of your body. Then in the degree that you open yourself to it, you will feel a quiet, peaceful, illuminating power that will harmonize body, soul, and mind, and that will then harmonize these with all the world. You are now on a mountaintop, and the voice of God is speaking to you. Then as you descend, carry this realization with you. Live in it, waking, working, thinking, walking, sleeping. In this way, although you may not be continually on a mountaintop, you will nevertheless be continually living in the realization of all the beauty and inspiration and power you have felt there. Moreover, the time will come when in the busy office or on the noisy street you can enter into silence by simply drawing a mantle of your own thought about you and realizing that there and everywhere the spirit of infinite life, love, wisdom, peace, power, and plenty is guiding, keeping, protecting, leading you. This is the spirit of continual prayer. This it is to pray without ceasing. This it is to know and to walk with God. This it is to find the Christ within. This is a new birth. First that which is natural, then that which is spiritual. In this way the old man is put off and the new man is put on. This it is to be saved unto life eternal, whatever one's form of belief or faith may be. For it is life eternal to know God. The sweet by and by will become a song of the past. We will create a new song, the beautiful eternal now. This is a realization that you and I can come into this very day, this very hour, this very minute, if we desire and if we will it. And if now we merely set our faces in the right direction, it is then but a matter of time until we come into the full splendors of this complete realization. To set one's face in the direction of the mountain, and then simply to journey on, whether rapidly or more slowly, will bring him to it. But unless one sets his face in the right direction and makes a start, he will not reach it. Said the young man Gautama Siddhartha, I have awakened to the truth, and I am resolved to accomplish my purpose. Verily I shall become a Buddha. It was this that brought him into the life of the enlightened one, and so into the realization of nirvana, right here in this life. That this same realization in life is within the possibilities of all here and now was his teaching. Said the young man Jesus, Know ye not that I must be about my Father's business? Making this the one great purpose of his life, he came into the full and complete realization. I and the Father are one. He came into the full realization of the kingdom of heaven right here in this life. That all could come into the same realization, and life here and now was his teaching. And so far as practical things are concerned, we may hunt the wide universe through, and we shall find that there is no injunction more practical than this. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all other things shall be added unto you. All the frictions, all the uncertainties, all the ills, the sufferings, the fears, the forebodings, the perplexities of life come to us because we're out of harmony with the divine order of things. They will continue to come as long as we so live. Rowing against the tide is hard and uncertain. to go with the tide, and thus take advantage of the working of a great natural force. It is safe and easy to come into the conscious, vital realization of our oneness with the infinite life and power. Is to come into the current of this divine sequence. Coming thus into harmony with the infinite brings us in turn into harmony with all about us, into harmony with the life of the heavens, into harmony with all the universe. And above all, it brings us into harmony with ourselves so that body, soul, and mind become perfectly harmonized. And when this is so, life becomes full and complete. As one comes into and live continually in the full, conscious realization of his oneness with the infinite life and power, then all else follows. This it is that brings a realization of such splendors and beauties, and joys as a life thus related with the infinite power alone can know. This it is to come into the realization of heaven's richest treasures while walking the earth. This it is to bring heaven down to earth, or rather, to bring earth up to heaven. This it is to exchange weakness and impotence for strength, sorrows and sighing for joy, fears and forebodings for faith, longing for realizations. This it is to come into fullness of peace, power, and plenty. This it is to be in tune with the infinite. You have just heard In Tune with the Infinite by Ralph Waldo Trine, a book published in 1897, a book that traveled the world, touched millions of lives, and continues to do so because its truth is not dependent on any era, any culture, any particular form of belief. Its truth is woven into the very fabric of what we are and how we are related to the source of all things. Let us hold its essence in a single breath before we part. There is a spirit of infinite life and power that is back of all, animating all, manifesting in and through all. You are not separate from it. You are an individualized expression of it. You are your deepest, most essential level of its very nature. The only question is the gate. Is it open or closed? Open it. Through the mind, through the conscious recognition of what you truly are, through the earnest, sincere desire to live in this realization, and the inexhaustible reservoir on the mountain above begins to flow into the pool of your life. Fullness of health, fullness of love, fullness of wisdom, fullness of peace, fullness of power, fullness of plenty. All of these are not things you must struggle to earn or fight to claim. They're the natural, inevitable, effortless result of a life that knows itself to be one with the source of all things. Seek ye first the kingdom, and all else shall be added. The kingdom is within. It was always within. It is waiting for you now, in this moment, as it has been waiting for you in every moment of your life. Open the gate. Let the water flow. Thank you for listening.